What's happening, everybody? Welcome into a brand new episode of Crossed Up Monday, October 7th. Anthony Sanfilippo's here. I'm Bob Wankel. And Anthony, I have to imagine that, I know you've covered a lot of baseball games and a lot of hockey games and a little bit of everything else. I would probably go out on a limb and say that was one of the craziest, wildest, and most memorable games that you've ever witnessed in person. We have a lot to talk about. Some of it's good, some of it's bad, but I'm going to just say this. I swore to myself that I would at least put a 5-minute buffer before I start to complain about some of the things we saw this weekend, because what we saw yesterday was an all-timer. So let's just for 5 minutes focus on the good, and then we'll pick apart everything else.
Sure. It was an all-time baseball game. Just in as a game in totality, I have a hard time coming up with another one that I've been present for that was that wild and crazy and ultimately a win for the home team. The closest I guess I could come was when the Flyers came back from down 3-0 to Boston and won game 7 in Boston after being down 3-0 in that game and won 4-3. But that wasn't here, right? So like part of what made yesterday so special was the fact that 45,687 or whatever the number was got to experience that as a win for the Phillies, because that made the environment down there. I know we talk about it ad nauseum. It's almost kind of like become passé to talk about the Phillies home, fans in that ballpark in October. But it lived up to its billing, especially from the 6th inning on. People were on their feet nonstop. The sound from pitch to pitch was deafening, and then of course all those crazy moments in the game. It was like nothing I've ever experienced.
Yeah, and before we started recording, I asked you how was the crowd. I mean, I know what we saw on TV. I certainly see a lot of red. One thing that did not come into play the way that we thought it might, it was never going to be 45%. Thank you, Russ Joy. But I wondered, like, would the Mets fans dilute that energy a little bit? Would they come in and be heard? And it was pretty clear that was not the case. And it was really just a total non-factor, which was good. That was good to see. But I struggled to really know what the overall energy was. Like, you see the Bryson Stott moment, the back-to-back. Obviously, the crowd gets loud. But I didn't think that the telecast, and I have a lot of complaints about the telecast, didn't do a great job of necessarily capturing the energy the way that we've seen telecasts do in the past during the postseason. So that's why I asked you from a genuine standpoint, like, did that crowd yesterday meet the standard? Did it hold up, and was it what you expected it to be? And I have to say, you talk about the arc of the game and the roller coaster ride that it was, and yeah, like not only was it a wild game, and not only did the home team the home crowd get to experience that thrill, but that game saved their season. We could have gotten on here today and talked about, they've won 3 in a row. How many times this year? They can do it. And if there was ever a team that could lose 3 in a row, it would be the Mets. LOL. And all of that stuff. They weren't going to win this series without winning that game yesterday. It had to happen. They had to do it. And where you were at after game 1, where the city was at after game 1, questioning toughness and mental fortitude, and does this team have any balls? Like, all of that stuff got answered in a span of 4 innings between the 6th and the 9th yesterday. And so there's so much, here's the word, the magic word, momentum now going into game 3. I guess, like, I don't even know where to start. There's just so much to unpack with this game. But here's one. Nick Castellanos, just a terrible at bat early in the game. And, he does these fucking people. It's right on TV, clear as day. The internet runs with it. I will tell you that in that moment, I said, he's not going to be here next year. Like, this is it. And I should know better by now, not to get so far out ahead of myself. And I don't know what's going to happen this offseason. Maybe things do happen. But I don't know that I've ever seen a moment that could have just been a total catastrophe where that's what we're talking about this morning. This team can't hit. They're making a bunch of excuses. You got the right fielder telling people to basically fuck off in the middle of the game because he's getting Bronx cheered. And then none of that matters because you fast forward a few innings and the guy is the hero. What a weird sequence of events for Nick Castellanos.
Yeah, I mean, he's an interesting player, right? I mean, I look at Nick Castellanos and there is no real middle ground with Nick. Nick is either locked in, sensational, and the player that you think that you're getting when you're paying him $100 million and the back of the baseball card guy and all that. And then there's the Nick Castellanos who's not even playable, right? I mean, and we've run the gamut with this guy. He's had those moments or stretches of his career in his time with the Phillies. Never do I think has he though had that entire roller coaster in one game.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
this was the arc of the Nick Castellanos experience in Philadelphia in one game. He was terrible his first. Well, I shouldn't say he was terrible the first at bat. He lined out, but he did swing at a bad pitch in that first at bat. The second at bat was as bad an at bat as anybody had in the game yesterday on either team. That's how bad the at bat was.
Yeah.
And that led to the "these fucking people" comment, assuming that's what he said, but it's pretty
I'll
much
say that's what he said, I think.
so yeah. I mean, nobody officially said that that's what he said, but that's probably what he said. But then to follow that up with a game-tying home run, a big opposite field single that sets up the Stott triple, and then a patented sliding catch in right field. Like that part is kind of lost in this whole Nick Castellanos story, but it happened. It's the third year in a row we've had that play by him. And then the fourth thing, the walk-off hit, especially down 2 strikes at that point. Like, it was the full Castellanos experience. And it's part of the reason why I like the guy, right? Like, it's part of the reason why I sit there and say, yes, he's flawed, but he's got a certain panache to him that you want on your team because you know he's going to come through eventually. And I think that's an important thing. He's been arguably the best division series player the Phillies have ever had, and maybe even baseball. I mean, he hit 300 in 2022 in a division series. People forget that, right? That and that one against the Braves. Last year, he was off the charts with all the home runs against the Braves, and now here you go with a 3-hit game against the Mets in game 2. Like, he is just, this is his round, and good on him.
Well, look, there's a lot of things that you can lock in on and say, like, this is the key to the series now moving forward. This is how the series is going to get determined over the next 3 games. But it is so clear how important it is going to be for whoever it is, and I assume it will be Castellanos these final 3 games of the series, maybe 3 games, hitting behind Bryce Harper. Like, someone has to protect Bryce Harper. And had the Phillies lost yesterday, the first thing I would have said getting on here would have been, this offseason, the Phillies need to go out and get a professional, legitimate, consistent force behind Bryce Harper and protect this guy. Because you can, over 162, if you're good enough, it doesn't really get highlighted as much. Maybe the numbers aren't quite as good. Maybe over the course of 162, you don't see as many hittable pitches. If you're Bryce Harper, you get yourself out more because you're getting impatient because you're Bryce Harper. Yesterday, he got the protection, and it was the difference in the game. To me, I actually think that Castellanos, assuming he's back here next year, like, he's your 5 hitter, still go out and get me somebody that can really, truly provide meaningful thump behind Bryce Harper. But that's the whole thing, because the Mets have made decisions here. They're very clearly, you knew coming in, they talked about on the broadcast the first game, and then early on, like, they're not going to let Bryce Harper beat them. They're not going to let Bryce Harper beat them. And then they obviously decided to pitch to him down or up 3-0. Bryce Harper beats him. And then late in the game, again, the 8th, like, they said, like, nope, you know what? We're going to put you on base. We're going to put the tying run on base. We're going to get cute here. Like, they are not going to pitch to him unless the situation absolutely requires them to do so, or that they have a lead so big that it doesn't really matter. So Great job, Nick. But now here's the thing, right? Like, and I'm not trying to like create anxiety or dampen what happened here, because you have to appreciate it for what it was. But much like we saw last year, where he has this explosive NLDS performance, right around the corner was a disastrous NLCS. Like, they need more from him now. Like, that can't be it. That you just talked about the Nick Castellanos experience. Well, part of that experience is, well, where the hell did that guy go? And bottom line, like, you're in a playoff series here. It's 1-1. Like, you're not up 2-0 on the brink of knocking these guys out. Like, there's a lot of work to be done here, and he's going to be key to what happens. I truly believe that.
Absolutely. And you know, it was interesting because even in the ninth inning, Turner's already on, but Turner works a walk, which is fascinating to me because he's another guy who's been swinging out of his shoes for 2 games, chasing pitches. Although he had a nice game, you can't complain. He had a nice game yesterday, but still, he's chased a lot of pitches. They pitched around Harper even in that at bat, and I know that it got, you know, he works a walk, but he had 2 strikes, and he had 2 strikes on him. Hooked that one just foul down the right field line. In all honesty, that would have won the game if that landed a foot fair, right, a foot further to the left. But even that at bat, they were pitching around Harper. And to me, it's almost like they were willing to put the winning run, not only put the winning run was already on base, but they were willing to put it in scoring position.
Yeah.
Like, to
well, do you think that you just look at his entire body of work, you look at the home run, then you see him hook the ball down the right field line, just go, okay, no, like, I'll take my shot ready on righty. I'll take my shot that Nick Castellanos can't do it again. And
yeah,
I can't kill them for that. But also, McGill was cooked at that point too. I mean, he had nothing. That pitch that Castellanos hit the single on, I mean, was just a terrible pitch. And good on Nick for taking advantage of it. That bullpen was a disaster yesterday.
Their entire bullpen is cooked. I mean, let's be honest. I don't want to get off onto a tangent here, but Edwin Diaz has thrown, I think, 127 pitches or something like that this week. Yeah. Starters don't throw that many pitches in a week. Yeah. And he's in 1 week threw that many pitches. I mean, the pitch he threw to Bryson Stott on the triple was a god-awful slider. Everything was up in that entire bat. Up. And he could not get his slider down. His fastball had run on it. It's, and run out of the zone. That bullpen's in trouble for the Mets. That's the one thing that the Phillies should look to take advantage of. I would argue, and I don't want to get off the topic too quick, but I would argue going forward, another important point would be work the starters. Like, work counts. Like, they didn't do it yesterday. Severino was cruising, and he had only, I think it was 51 pitches through 4 innings or whatever, 60 pitches through 5. Like, he was cruising until the 6th inning. You got to work those starting pitchers because you got to get into the Mets bullpen. And I think that's going to be another key in the rest of this series. If you get the starting pitchers out of the game, you're in good shape against the Mets.
I have a list here of all the positives we could talk about because, you can see my face right now. It like just wants to come out. I have some things.
I hear you, Bob.
I'm trying here.
I'm with you. There are a few things to be upset about. Yes.
I am such a miserable person. So I'm watching it last night and it's like exciting and you're like, yeah, but you're also like, good. Like, that's the bare minimum you should have done. I can appreciate it for what it was, this all-time game. And then I immediately, about 30 seconds later, go like, okay, game 3. There are a lot of things to sort out here. But before we do that, let's just talk a little bit about Bryce Harper here. And like, I kind of want to wait to do this until whatever happens, because I don't want to come on here and be like, wow, like this guy just unbelievable, Mount Rushmore, all that stuff. And then in 3 days, their season's over and he, goes 0 for 6 with 4 walks. And then like, we just ate up 5 minutes of a show that we didn't really need to use on him right now. I just don't know. I mean, they were so dead in the water. And that's the thing that's so striking to me. It's like, I know he doesn't come through every single time, but when you get down 3-0, Alonso hits the home run and you're like, this is a nightmare. Like, this is an absolutely embarrassing sequence of events that they are in this spot. And so by the time he comes up down 3-0, runner on, 2 out, like, you need it. Like, you don't even need a walk. You need it. You need that spark. And it's not just about getting on base or getting a hit. It's like it just felt like that was the game. It almost felt to me like that was the game. I know that the Mets bullpen is cooked, and I know that you could get to that bullpen later on, but man, like they desperately needed a moment. I just can't remember a player here who almost every single time when they truly needed it feels like this guy's able to deliver. I mean, in such a short amount of time, in 3 postseasons or 2.5 postseasons, this guy has accumulated incredible statistics, but just a number of moments where you're like, what? He is a killer, this guy.
Yeah. His 32 games with the Phillies in the playoffs, hitting 327, 727 slugging percentage, a 1.170 OPS. The only player in the history of baseball who has a better statistical line over their first 32 postseason games with a team is Lou Gehrig.
Yeah,
with the Yankees.
Crazy. It's
like,
crazy.
Think about that for a second. That's how good he's been.
And there's like right at the end of the Arizona series, the end of the Houston series, but you have to just step back and be like, you're not going to hit more 700.
Right. What more can you ask from the guy?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, even if Bryce Harper, if they could lose the next 2 games, right? And Bryce Harper could go 0 in those 2 games, and you still have to look at Bryce Harper as this guy's doing his part.
Yeah.
He's doing his part. That's all there is to it. I don't know if there's enough superlatives for what he does in the playoffs. He's sometimes a frustrating player in the regular season, and we've had our quibbles with him in the way he does things in the regular season. But you put the red light on in October, I can't think of very many other players in the sport of baseball that I would want on my team.
In the same breath, talk about would you want any other player on your team? Zack Wheeler was absolutely phenomenal, and it's part of it's part his performance on Saturday does 2 different things to me at the same time. One, it's why I'm confident that the Phillies will win this series. I still think in 5, because the guy is maybe the best postseason pitcher that I've seen in this city ever. Like, I think that's probably, I know Schilling and then Hamilton had his 08 run and all that, but this is as good as it gets. He might be, I actually think you're approaching a territory where it's a shame he's not going to win the Cy Young, and he might never win one. This guy might be, I don't want to get out ahead of myself, but just for the duration, there's been multiple years here. Like, Cliff Lee was a flash in the pan. Roy Halladay was really, 2 good years. This guy is maybe the best starting pitcher I've been alive for in this city. I think we're actually approaching that point, just in terms of the performance and the volume of performance. And that's why I said, like, I get Halladay, I get Lee, I get Hamels. This guy's on another realm.
He is on another plane. He really is. And I wrote something about him the other day, and it's kind of a footnote. I mean, really, at this point, because they lost the game, they wasted the start by him. But he's doing things that only like 1 or 2 other pitchers in the history of baseball have done. He's the only one other pitcher has gone. Let me see if I remember this exactly correct. At least 6 innings, 2 earned runs or fewer, and at least 8 strikeouts in 5 consecutive starts in postseason history. The only guys to do that, Sandy Koufax also did it for 5 straight starts. So Sandy Koufax is the name that he is partnered with, and the only guy who did it more was Curt Schilling. Did it for 6, but not here. He did it when that was with, I think, when he was with Arizona/Boston, that combination. So that's how historic he is as a postseason pitcher. And we talk about guys who are going to, you talk about him as, are they Hall of Fame worthy, right? Eventually. And you're looking back on a player's career. And there are guys who you sit there and go, best postseason pitcher I've ever seen. Yeah. And that's why, like Curt Schilling, like why a lot of people thought he was a candidate. That's, who won the 3 World Series for the San Francisco Giants. Madison Bumgarner was one of the best postseason pitchers you've ever seen. You got to start putting Zack Wheeler in that conversation because of just how dominant he's been these past 3 seasons.
I said, and his performance is what gives me confidence about a potential game 5, but at the same time, it's what infuriates me about what happened this weekend. It's like, how do you get that performance and not back him up at all? I mean, other than Kyle Schwarber, just nothing from the bullpen, nothing from the lineup. And it was just why I was not in like a dark place after game 1, but I went, they might be in trouble because psychologically you take your best shot and you get that performance from your guy and he goes out and gives you that. And then you don't find a way to win the game. And I do wonder if at some point you say like, wow, like maybe this Mets team just has unlimited dark arts magic, unlimited pixie dust. And I want to get to that because that might be true anyway, but they then back it up. And one thing I'll give Rob credit for, it worked out. Like the decision to go to Christopher Sanchez in game 2, at least in game 2, worked. I mean, I don't know what awaits Aaron Nola up in New York. I like what they did. I liked the decision ahead of time. I thought it was the right one. Christopher Sanchez gave them 5 very good innings yesterday. I don't know if Vientos saw something. I don't know if Lindor saw something. That was a big part of the telecast. He was talking to guys in the dugout. Vientos obviously had struggled historically with Sanchez coming into the game, had a couple very good swings against him yesterday. But other than that, Christopher Sanchez was phenomenal. And so you feel great about the Phillies starting pitching and watching a young guy step up. And if they get through this series, you feel even better about them because there's always that unknown element. Can the younger guy who doesn't have the playoff experience survive in that element? So you feel great about what would potentially unfold in the NLCS or World Series with him. But like 12 innings total, 2 earned runs, and you came away 1-1 with both games at home. And that's part of the reason now I made it 20 minutes. I'll start to tilt this back to like, damn, and I guess some ways you were lucky to win yesterday, but you really gave a game away in game 1. And I'm kind of curious now that this has all been laid out, like, where do you sit through 2 games? Like big picture, do you feel like they did what they needed to do? Do you feel like that they are now making this harder than they need to? Like, what's your overall sense of where this team's at as they go to New York?
Well, I mean, if I back up to Friday, I expected a split in the first 2 games. Granted, I had it the other way around. I had them winning game 1, losing game 2. But you take the split and you go forward. So in that regard, I stand by my thought that I think that they're going to win the series. There are a couple of things though that cropped up in the first 2 games that I didn't have as a concern coming into the series that I now have a little bit of a concern about.
I have a list right here, actually.
Well, I'm just saying, like, I mean, so where do I still think they're going to win the series? I do, just because I don't see how the Mets are going to get them out after the 5th, 6th inning. I just don't. Unless Minaya and I guess who's going to go game 4 for them will be.
I mean, they could go to Peterson if they want to. They could go to Quintana.
Oh, no, Quintana.
Yeah.
So unless Minaya and Quintana are suddenly throwing 7 innings, right? 7 inning starts, 8 inning starts, which I don't think is going to happen. I don't know how that bullpen, it's so depleted right now. I don't know how the Phillies don't score off that bullpen. That said, the guys I thought were going to be lockdown bullpen guys for the Phillies have struggled mightily against the Mets, and not sure why.
Okay.
I have some thoughts on each individual case, but it doesn't necessarily add up to that's the reasoning overall. Like that's what I'm saying. Like I could look at each individual moment and say, well, this went wrong and this went wrong, but they don't add up to it being a problem. And why is it happening?
Yeah, I mean, I just said it. 12 innings from the starting pitchers, 2 earned runs. Phillies relievers in this series have thrown 6 innings and they've given up 10 earned runs, and it's been their main guys. I mean, Jeff Hoffman, Anybody that's listened to the show over the last year and a half knows how much I like Jeff Hoffman and I trust him in general terms. I know he came in and got the last out last night, and that's great. He was horrible on Saturday. And Matt Strahm, just terrible. I mean, there's really no other way to say it. I mean, now these are two of the National League's best relievers. Matt Strahm, I believe, had not given up runs in back-to-back appearances this season. I believe I read that yesterday. Yep. So, look, it's an anomaly, and I'm not going to sit here and say that I don't trust these guys all of a sudden after the greater body of work says that they should be trusted. But I thought Matt Strahm in the ninth inning yesterday was especially bad. Like, I know people were like, I was surprised that the Vientos homer got out. I'm like, okay, like, or that it was like elevated in the zone to the point where he should have gotten away with it. And I'm like, I saw 92 and flat. It was up a little bit, sure, but that wasn't a special pitch. And I just don't know. You look at it, and the Mets seem to be on, and I don't know if this is where you want to go with it. The Mets seem to be on every single reliever. It's like they know what's coming. And I don't know if that's a tip of the cap to the Mets advanced scouts. I don't know if they're tipping in real time. I don't know if it's just a fluke. I don't know if Phillies relievers are just a little bit rusty because they had the layoff and it requires precision and a routine in order to execute at that level late in games against good teams. I don't know. Maybe it's all those things, but it was bad.
Well, I'll give you a quote from Matt Strahm yesterday about that pitch to Vientos. Here's what he said. And this isn't going to make you feel any better, Bob, just so you know. He goes, "It was a bad miss. It was up and out of the zone. I was trying to go down and away to freeze him. He's really good and keeps his bat flat across the top of the zone. So if you go up, you have to go up. So it was a bad miss, a really bad miss." Mm-hmm. Crazy, right? Like, I mean, like, absolute.
So I missed my spot by 3.5 feet.
Yes. Like, you can't just, what do you mean you were trying to go down and away or down and in and went up and away? Or or whatever. I mean, like, you can't miss by 3 feet.
No, and you can't miss by 3 feet when you're throwing 92 either. Yeah. And there was a swing earlier. Was it in that at bat or was it to Bader where he got the strikeout? I have to go back and watch it, but he missed middle, and the ball was fouled back. And he did one of those things where he like took his glove and like almost cursed into it, or he might have. He like yelled because he knew that he had missed so badly. And I had seen that earlier in the inning. I was like, oh man, I'm like, I don't know that he knows where the ball is going at the moment. And I don't know what to make of that because this doesn't work without those guys. Like, that has to get fixed right now. We could talk about the Mets bullpen all we want. We could talk about moments in Bryce Harper and protecting Harper. If Jeff Hoffman and Matt Strahm aren't Jeff Hoffman and Matt Strahm, this ain't going to work.
Well, and I'll tell you another thing. And here's the other part. And this is why I say I can't figure out what's wrong. Because in the game on Saturday, Strahm throws 17 pitches, all 17 for strikes. Like, to me, you have to mix a ball in every once in a while, right? I mean, and he gave me an answer on Saturday that befuddled me too, because what ends up happening on Saturday in that fateful eighth inning is they give up. Another first guy, Alvarez, gets a single early in the count. But then Hoffman and Strahm, 5 straight batters, 0-2.
Yeah.
Not just 2 strikes, 0-2. 5 straight batters. 1 works a walk, 3 get hits, 1 sacrifice fly. You got to get a strikeout at some point. And Matt Strahm, I said to him after a game, I'm like, I know you get 0-2 on those guys. And I'm trying to ask the question, the way I'm going to ask it. And he goes, I don't think I threw a ball. And I said, yeah, I know. Like, the point is that you have to throw a ball almost, don't you? Like, you got to go. And he's like, well, I've said it all along. I've said it my whole career. I'm going to attack. I'm going to throw strikes. And sometimes you're going to give up 0-2 hits. No. Not in the playoffs, buddy. Not in the playoffs. I think you heard Zack Wheeler say something talking about a very similar situation. He had 4 walks in the game, okay, even though he pitched as great as he did. And he said, I'm not going to put the ball in a position in the playoffs. I'm not going to put the ball in a spot where guys are going to go out there and get a hit. I'm going to go out of the zone a little bit. He's talking about pitching the way you need to pitch. You got to be careful in the postseason. And that Matt Strahm was not careful on Saturday night and gives up a couple of hits, or gives up the contact, even though he got 0-2. So it's a different philosophy, but I'll take Zack Wheeler's philosophy every day and twice on Sunday over Matt Strahm's philosophy there. So like I'm saying, I don't necessarily know what the overarching problem is, other than maybe bravado, right? Like I don't know, but whatever it is that the Phillies are doing in the bullpen, it's not right.
Yeah, they need to, I think, gather themselves here with the day off, and I think that they might need to, and I'm sure that they will sit down and kind of look at what happened and what the issues may have been, and try to address them. And I have a lot of trust in Caleb Coffin, but like that was very, very bad this weekend. And I'm actually kind of curious about, and I know they won the game, but I'm gonna I think that this needs to be kind of said. It was very interesting to me in the 6th inning. I'll pull up my phone and I want to read the text message that I sent to you after the 6th inning.
Yeah.
If Rob Thompson had to have open heart surgery, he would kick the doctor out of the room and ask Jose Ruiz to do it. I wish someone believed in my mediocrity the way that Rob believes in his. It's the playoffs. It's 2-0. You are down 1-0. Why the fuck is Jose Ruiz in the game in the 6th inning? And don't read to me his post All-Star break stats and how he's really good and he's got 1 point or whatever. No Jose Ruiz in games that are hanging in the balance. No, enough. He's not that guy. Let him. He's a member of your bullpen next year. He can be your 6th best guy. You want to run him out there in the 6th inning when you're holding a 2-1 lead in May? Go ahead. Knock your socks off. You can't do it in October. No more.
Yeah. The only question there, though, Bob, is who's the alternative? Because the only other guy that they haven't used yet is Alvarado.
Yeah, give me Alvarado. Right? I trust him more than Jose Ruiz. The guy's been here before. At least he's done it. Jose Ruiz is not that guy. He's just not.
Yeah, and they had Alvarado get warm twice. Didn't ultimately use him in the game. I think that they only want to use Alvarado against the top of the order, really. I mean, he's kind of a lefty specialist. The Mets only really have Nimmo as their lone lefty in the lineup. You turn Lindor around, I guess, but other than that, maybe if Jesse Winker's in the game and you don't have Martinez available to pinch hit for him, that's it. I mean, the Mets have all right-handed hitters. So the only thing is, and I agree with you, like I don't want to see Jose Ruiz in that spot. I probably would go Kerkering in that spot.
Yes, that is what I would have done. This should be Kerkering. Now, we haven't even talked about him. I mean,
he's
not
exactly
a lights out weekend for him either. So, I mean, at some point, if you're the manager, you go like, all right, you want to criticize that move or you want to criticize the way I deployed these guys, fine. But if none of them are going to do their jobs, does it really matter? And that's kind of the heart of the issue at the moment.
Yeah, no question. He didn't have a good playoff last year, right? Ryan Kerkering.
No, he didn't.
I mean, I guess his first 2 appearances last year, one was against Miami in a blowout game, and he did throw an inning, a pretty solid inning in that bullpen game masterclass in Game 1 in Atlanta. So I think that was fine. But beyond that, wasn't very good in the postseason last year, and has now had 2 outings in the postseason this year where he's not been great. I mean, I know the Saturday night he only gave up the 1 hit, but it allowed runs to score. Yeah. And then last night gives up a home run. Like, can't have that happen.
So you can look at it and say, I only gave up 1 hit and he struck out the side. But I mean, you can't give up that home run.
You can't.
Your guy, Brandon Nimmo. Your boy.
Yeah, you can't. And the funny part about it is that, let's flash back to August when Alvarado had to take that leave of absence from the team for a week. And, they were kind of light on lefties in the bullpen. And I asked Rob Thompson about it, and he said, well, I think of Kerkering as kind of a left-handed pitcher because he's really good against lefties. Oh, well, that's out the window after that home run by Brandon Nimmo, right? I mean, come on. So, So there's that. That's a concern for me right now. Like there is not a guy other than Estevez who had a clean inning yesterday.
Yeah, go figure. Estevez is the guy that I was the most concerned about coming into this series, and he's the guy that gave him a pretty sharp inning.
Yeah. Other than that, the bullpen's not been good.
So, do you think there is anything else to it? Do you think that, I mean, you had conversations, you got some weird quotes from Matt Strom. I mean, the layoff matter on this part of it? I didn't think the layoff had anything to do with Saturday. Or like in terms of the offense, I don't think that it did. I'm not a believer in that. It certainly didn't impact Zack Wheeler. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I think it's a kind of a make-believe talking point.
As far as for the pitchers, I mean, they threw during the week, right? So it's not like, I mean, that was the one thing the Phillies were really good about is like getting them their innings and their pitches during the week, not just in the inter squad game, but the bullpens and side sessions and things like that. Those guys all threw. So I don't think that them being off impacted the pitchers. I look at it. I don't have an explanation for Jeff Hoffman. I don't. Although he is the one guy who, keep in mind, did pitch less during the week because he had a stiff neck he woke up with a stiff neck on Wednesday from the way he slept, and so they didn't throw on Wednesday.
Well, also, and if you're looking for something to kind of hold on to, Jeff Hoffman blew that game 2 in Atlanta last season in the NLDS. I mean, he gave the home run up to Riley. And then he came back and was really good. Like, I do think from like a makeup, I don't think Matt Strom's going to be scared if he gets the ball again or when he gets the ball again. And I certainly don't think that Jeff Hoffman's going to be, but you just have to execute now. Like we've seen there's evidence that these guys can bounce back from hiccups and that they've put together a track record where you should still say, all right, I feel good about it. But it is ironic that this, to me, and maybe I overrate this bullpen because I have a lot of people that push back. They're like, man, I listen to you talk about this bullpen and you say they're 5-6 deep. And if you take this group of relievers up against others throughout baseball, to me, it's probably a top 3 or 4 group, top to bottom. I believe that.
I agree with you on that.
They were a total liability through 2 games. And if we played it out over 162, I'd say, yeah, like don't sweat it. They've got 4 days to figure this out now, and that does create some concern.
Where it really concerns me, Bob, is looking ahead, and I don't want to do a big look ahead right now, but game 4 is going to be a game where the bullpen is going to be needed.
Yeah,
we know this already. Like they may be needed in game 3 as well, depending on how Nola pitches, but they're really going to be needed in game 4. There's going to be a short lease on Ranger Suarez. We know this. So this bullpen is going to be a make or break for this team in this series, and they've not been good so far. So they have to figure it out. That is, to me, where all the big red flags should be and pointing at. Let's figure this part out, because I will say, and I'm going to be. I know fans are going to groan at this, and maybe you'll groan at this too. maybe you both. Everybody will. Maybe I'm on an island here, but I do. I don't want to make this as an excuse, but I do buy into it, and mostly because like you heard it from both teams, that the whole start time shadow thing is legit. It's real. If you look at both games over the course of the first 5 innings of the games, the Phillies had 1 run on a solo homer by Kyle Schwarber. The Mets had 2 runs on a home run by Mark Vientos. Other than that, neither team scored, right? In 2 games. So you had 2 guys who were able to get a hold of a pitch and drive it out of the ballpark, and no one else did anything of value to score a run. Some of that's on the pitching, some of that's good pitching, but they can't see the ball. And guys were on the Mets were saying, even I think it was Nimmo who said after game 1, you can't see the laces on the ball, the seams. And therefore it just looks like a black dot coming at you at the plate, coming out of that batter's eye. So I buy into that. And so therefore, I don't think that the whole hitting thing is as big a problem, I think, as a lot of people do, because I think both teams are suffering through that.
Sometimes
I think it's going to come down to the bullpen. It's really going to come down to the bullpen. And the Phillies bullpen should be infinitely better than the Mets bullpen. And that's why I think that the Phillies are the team that's going to win the series, but they haven't shown it so far. And that's the concern.
The Mets offense, shadows aside and timing aside, they were so bad on Thursday night against Milwaukee. They were so bad for 7 innings against Zack Wheeler. And then they were, they put some pressure on Sanchez yesterday. I mean, they give up 5 hits. They had 6 base runners through 5 innings. It's not like they were totally dusted away by him, but they weren't great. They weren't special.
Yeah, but a couple of those hits were kind of BS.
Yeah,
I mean, the Iglesias infield single, that's an error on Edmundo
yeah,
Sosa.
no, I hear you. Like, I don't think that this is a special lineup. I just look at this lineup and go, like, there's a lot of ugh in it.
Yeah.
But man, like, this is the one thing I kind of want to talk about. Like, last night, Bryson Stott gets the triple, and you go, okay, great. They're up 5-4. And if the bullpen were the bullpen and this were any other team, I'd almost say, like, I will take this every day of the week. And I'm like, they have got to get this 6th run in. They have to get this insurance run. It has to happen. If they don't, they're going to lose the game. I mean, I really felt like that in real time. I was like, if JT Realmuto does not get this run in, they will lose the game. And they would have. What is it with this Mets team? Like, I've seen teams have dramatic moments. I don't think I've ever, and maybe I'm just a prisoner of the moment. I don't think I've ever seen a team have a 5-day run of just improbable, like, you've got to be kidding me moments to this degree. Like, just preposterous, dating back to last Monday in Atlanta, late in the game. I mean, to do it Monday night, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. They did it 3 times yesterday and still lost the game. But, like, this has to run out at some point, right? This isn't just like a good team playing good baseball, racking up 14 hits and just, hey, you got to tip your cap. This is a good lineup. It just feels like this is a totally mediocre team that is just doing the absolute craziest shit at the most craziest of times right now. And they just keep doing it.
No, you're right, Bob, and there's no explanation for that. And sometimes that's the sport, right? I mean, sometimes we've discussed on this program before about how there's such a fine line between being a good baseball player and a bad baseball player. It's just a matter of, getting some breaks sometimes. But let's not forget, these are all these are all Major League Baseball players, and these are Major League Baseball players in the playoffs of the best baseball league in the world, and so they do get a benefit of the doubt a little bit sometimes, even if it's a team that you look at the lineup and go, yeah, there's not much there, and there's not from a comparative viewpoint, but they are still pros, and they are figuring out ways to do things that maybe that they have to win the way that they've won. Let's put it that way, right? They have to single you to death to get a 5-run 8th inning on Saturday because they couldn't do it any other way. And they did it by having a good approach at the plate and hitting the ball the other way, or using the whole field, letting the ball get deep and then taking the swing, like whatever.
They seem to do a great job of doing whatever they have to do when their back's against the wall. They're not good enough to do it for, and I don't know if this is skill or it's just purely luck or whatever it is, but it's like, okay, now it's the 8th inning. We're still facing good relievers here. Now we have to choke up. Now we have to have great 2-strike approaches. Now we just got to hit flares. And like, they have been able to tap into this in a way that I just don't remember seeing it. Like, I mean, you take any team that makes a postseason run, and I know that there's going to be at least 5 moments that team can always point back to at the end of the run. If they win it or they get to the World Series, you say, wow, remember that home run, that pitcher working out of a jam, that catch. Like, those things have to happen to win a championship. I just don't remember a team with players who aren't that good. Like, I'm sorry, they're not that good, doing this again and again and again the way that they have in this amount of time. It's like they've had 10 of these in a 4-day span. I cannot believe it.
Bad teams get on runs sometimes. We've seen it in the past. I mean, I flash back, look at the 07 Rockies, right? But that team wasn't very good. And yet they went, what was it, 21-4 in the last 25 games in September, swept the Phillies, swept the Diamondbacks, was it, in the NLCS, I think. And then they got swept eventually in the World Series by the Red Sox. But the point is that team had no business doing what they were doing, and they did it. The Diamondbacks last year had no business doing what they did, and they did it nevertheless. So like this happens, and in small sample sizes, a team like this, the Tigers this year, right? I mean, there's a team that has no business being where they are, and they're there. Yeah. So like it happens. I guess that's the explanation for it. Yes, the Mets seem to have a little bit more of, like you said, pixie dust because of they're making it more dramatic. But the reality of it is it's no different. It's the same. It's the same thing as these other teams.
How do you look at it? And again, it doesn't matter because once the first pitch gets thrown on Tuesday afternoon, we can guess and we can hypothesize all we want to. But do you look at this and say that sequence yesterday should be the thing that stomps this out? Like that ends it. Like that ends this Mets magic thing. Or do you think that they say like, ain't no big deal. We got one in Philly. We're coming home for two. We haven't been home in, it feels like, for 4 months. We're good. We're fine. We can just keep this thing rolling. Or do you think that they said like, fuck, like we are the inferior opponent? And not that they would ever say this, but I mean, in the back of your mind, even maybe subconsciously, like, no, man, like we had it and we let it go, and now we're in trouble.
Yeah, I'm Bob. I mean, I don't know if you ever had this kind of experience when you were coaching in high school, but a lot of times, you go up against a team that is obviously better than you are, and you punch them in the mouth. If they once they punch back, it's sometimes just you don't have the ability to respond.
Yeah,
just because like you had them on the ropes, and then boom, they got you, and it's like, oh no, right now. And so maybe that does happen to them. I don't know. I mean, look, Milwaukee's not the Phillies. This happened with the Brewers.
Yeah, I mean, Milwaukee took the second game, took a 2-run lead late. I mean,
they overcame the late rally against them, right?
So that's the reason why I say I say it is because I would love to sit here and tell myself that is the case. That okay, clock struck midnight. I don't think that at all. Actually, I think that
not yet.
I think they're very capable of, and I hope anyway that the Phillies are prepared for that. And I'm going to give you one here. We talk about Citizens Bank Park, and there's no better home field advantage. Like Phillies did lose 3 straight playoff games, and we're on the brink of losing a 4th consecutive playoff game at Citizens Bank Park. And I know that the crowd works in their favor, and there were some tense moments yesterday, and the Castellanos thing happened. I don't hate the fact that they're headed to New York for these 2 games because there's not going to be any talk about, well, we're coming home now and we're playing at the bank in the Red October. Like, I think that they know that they're going into a very hostile environment against a team that has played very good baseball. Like we talked about last year, was there any slip up at those final 2 games, kind of kidding yourself that we're coming back to our place against a team that we're better than? And was there anything in the details that might have gotten lost because they were just a little too overconfident? I think that this team's ears have to be totally perked up right now, going to New York, knowing what awaits them. And I also think it's fitting that Aaron Nola, we talk about running it back this year, the same group. Can they get over the hump? They get one more chance together as currently constructed to do it. And Aaron Nola is sort of the guy that is symbolic of that commitment to bring it back again, because he's the guy that got the big deal that could have gone elsewhere. They could have let him walk. Like Aaron, I don't want to oversell it. He's got a lot of years left in Philadelphia. He's had some really bad moments. He's had some great moments. He had a good year this year, but boy, pressure's on, dude.
They need him.
They need him. You've got to deliver, especially with where this bullpen's at right now. Manaea has been pretty good. You gotta do it here.
No, there's no question that he does. And the one thing that Philly fans can take solace in going into this is Nola has in the past 2 years in the beginning of the playoffs, division series, wildcard round division series, first couple starts, really been good, right?
Yeah.
In the postseason. So that's one thing that you look at. But the other thing, Bob, that I look at is how well he pitches up there in Citi Field. He does a good job there. For whatever reason, it's one of those ballparks that it plays to him a little bit. It's because you don't hit a lot of home runs, I guess, in Citi Field. So the mistakes that Nola makes, what drives fans crazy is sometimes, he gives up those home runs because his pit, he doesn't throw nearly as hard as a lot of pitchers do. But for whatever reason, at Citi Field, he seems to do better. The Mets at Citi Field in his career, 14 games that he started at Citi Field, Mets have batted 211 against him. Like, that's not that good. A slug of 369 at Citi Field. It's weird. Like, I mean, yeah, the ERA is 3.2. I mean, it's over time. It's not like blow you out out of the water,
Yeah,
but a
it's stellar.
1.03 whip, right? And we're talking 14 games there. 102 strikeouts in 85 innings there. I mean, he's good there. For whatever reason, he's better strikeout pitcher there than anywhere else in the league.
Well,
I don't
do,
know.
and they need him though. I mean, the way, and you referenced it earlier, the way that this bullpen is thrown, I had no problem with like Ranger Suarez for 3 innings and then chaos afterward. Like, I actually felt okay about that matchup. I don't
Yeah.
pencil that in as like an L. But now with the bullpen being a total unknown, like you just don't know what you're going to get this week from these guys now. There's part of me that goes like, holy crap, you better win game 3 because game 4 is just a total question mark. Like, I think it's actually fair to say at the start, given the way that Ranger Suarez has thrown the ball now, basically since the middle of June, late June, when he's been healthy, it hasn't been very good. And this would probably be the only time in the series game 4 where you feel better about how the Mets are going to start a game than how the Phillies are going to start a game. And I'm sorry, like, I don't mean to diminish like Ranger Suarez postseason history or his accomplishments, but like right now, I don't have a lot of trust in Ranger Suarez. I mean, how could you? How could you, other than slow heartbeat? Like, that's all fine and well until it's not. You can have a slow heartbeat and throw the ball 86 miles an hour over the middle of the plate and get tattooed. So I don't think the moment will be too big for him, but I don't know if his arm is good enough for the moment. So you need Aaron Nola to come through here.
Yeah, you do, and more so, Bob, because I look at the bullpen as constructed, and this was why I was a little perplexed by the 12th guy being Colby Allard and not Max Lazar. I understand why they didn't go to Turnbull. His stuff's not ready yet. He looked bad in the inter squad game. Okay, fine. But the Mets, we've talked about how they're so right-handed. And I'm trying to sit in there and in my head, I'm trying to say, okay, if Rangers are only going to give you, let's just say he only gives you 3 innings, right? Let's just for kicks. And you need to get 6 innings out of your bullpen. You're going to have to get 3 of those innings by left-handed pitchers against an all right-handed lineup.
Yeah.
Like that, to me, that doesn't bode well. And that's why I thought you would have been better off going with a guy like Lazar in that spot. So you had an extra righty in the pen.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like that's one that I worry about a little bit.
Well, and there's no question that could matter. It could come into play. My guess is it's an astute observation by you, but my guess is if it comes down to Lazar versus Allard, then other things have also gone wrong.
Well, I mean, so let's play the game with me for a second, Bob. If you're going to say 3 innings for Suarez, who are the 6 guys that are going to go 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9?
Well, they'll go to Ruiz probably, I would imagine, first, right. I guess. That gets you through, 4 and maybe into the 5th a little bit. Alvarado maybe gives you an inning, maybe gives you 4 outs.
They're not going to go 2 innings, a second inning with Alvarado. Like, he's got to get 1 full inning and that's it.
Yeah, 1 full. So then, now you're into the 5th or now you're into the 6th, though. And I mean, then I guess you just line it up and you do your Estevez, Hoffman, Strom. Like, that's how they're going to do it. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, like you said, and that's where it's also like it'd be nice if your offense came out and did it. And like there are a lot of things that can be said here. Like they're in the middle of a series. There's 2 games. They're only 2 games in, but they're 2 losses away from also having their season end and this thing being a massive disappointment. So, I'm looking at what these guys did over the weekend. Trey Turner, you referenced the shadows and them being real. Like I totally agree. I don't doubt that the shadows were real and had a significant impact on the at bats. I also don't want to hear Trey Turner be the guy after he goes 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts, chasing pitches outside of the zone wildly, putting together non-competitive at bats against pitchers that he should have an advantage over, come out and be the one to say it. Like I don't really have the appetite for that. And I know he got on base 3 times yesterday and he had an okay game, but like I would like to see this guy become have that superstar moment at some point here. But again, not at the top of my list. But now I'm just going to go through and pick them off. Kyle Schwarber has the 2 hits, obviously, on Saturday. I'm not going to sit here and kill him. Not a very good game yesterday. I mean, 0 for 5. That
the strikeout against the Diaz.
Yeah,
and the
back foot slider and just
7th inning. Yeah, it was bad.
We've talked about Harper and Castellanos in a positive light. Bryson Stott did nothing on Saturday. Couple hits yesterday. You hope that maybe that gets him going. Obviously has a significant moment, and now here I'm going to get to it. Even Johan Rojas, for as much as I've talked about him, Johan Rojas gave you about everything you could possibly hope for offensively this weekend, which wasn't a lot, but it was something.
Yeah.
Brandon Marsh.
Before you get to Brandon Marsh, to be fair, the hit that Rojas had yesterday, so poorly played by Nimmo in left field.
I get it. But anytime that guy gets to first base in a playoff series, I'm going to say, great job, man. Like it's not a super high bar, but I need more out of Real Muto. Credit to him for, as Ruben Amaro said, touching the baseball when it needed to be touched, gets that run home. But not exactly an electrifying weekend at the plate for JT Real Muto. Brandon Marsh 0 for 8. That is just this is what kills me. And then you get just a brutal at bat from Hayes in a pinch hit situation. This is what we talked about all year. And there's nothing worse. It's not that I want to be I see. And there's a lot of baseball left. And maybe Brandon Marsh hits a game 5 walk-off for the Phillies. And we're he goes down as a freaking legend. There's so much that's going to be determined about the way that this is all viewed over the next few days. But I just look at it and I'm like, you have such a deficiency in your outfield and it's just playing out like this. And it's been like this all year. Brandon Marsh cannot go 0 for 8. It doesn't work.
He's going to be stuck at 0 for 8 for a bit.
He will not start. He will not start game 3. There's no shot.
Or 4. He's not going to start the other one. He's probably going to get into the games at some point because, again, the Mets don't have lefties in the bullpen.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, he's going to be a factor. And I like how this goes. You like Brandon Marsh. He's a great dude. And he's a pretty good ball player at times. But he's, it's just not good. This isn't good enough.
No, they need real.
Their outfield is not good enough. They need more from these guys. They need to be better. And, they have the capability of doing it in short spurts. And you just hope that they do. Austin Hayes, man, you're up. This is what they traded. This is why they got you now. So,
can I give you a quote from Real Muto since you brought him up? Just wanted to kind of get your take on this because I know there's a couple other things we got to talk about with the lineup, especially what's going to happen going into New York. But Real Muto said this after the game last night. A couple of us were saying after the game, all right, we can breathe now. For whatever reason, it felt a little tense, a little tight coming into the series. We just weren't really ourselves in the box. I feel like now we can let loose and play our brand of baseball.
I don't know what that means. I don't understand what that means.
Why?
We weren't ourselves. Did they feel the weight of the world coming into the series? And
we were tight and not what are you talking about, man? This is everything you've wanted. This is all you've talked. You guys have talked about this.
Yeah.
All you have talked about since March, since February. That's it. You're finally here, and now you're tight and don't feel like yourselves.
I get being tight. I get being tight because if you focus on a moment forever and then you arrive at it, there's that human nature of being tight. But I don't want to hear that. Don't say that.
Right? Like that's got to be a little bit of a
And JT
concern.
is like a guy that knows how to say the right thing. It's
Yeah.
not like he's like a space cadet and you go, "Oh, that's just JT talking."
Yeah.
It's a weird thing to say, but yeah, I mean, look, and like again, we're reacting off of 2 games. What else are we going to do? Like, I can't come on a podcast after 2 crazy playoff games and be like, "Well, it's only 2 games and that's baseball." Like, I got to give you something, and it wasn't good enough. This is
Yeah.
what you're going to be judged on this year. This is how you're going to be defined, right or wrong, fair or not. Squeezing too tight on 2 games maybe isn't like the way to evaluate baseball from a more nuanced stance, but like this is the deal. So you're going to get evaluated on it. So when you go 0 for 8, like Brandon Marsh, or you go 0 for 3, like JT Realmuto, or 0 for 3 Saturday, and then I don't know what his line was yesterday, but he didn't have a hit, right? It was a fielder's choice.
Yes, it was a fielder's choice
So
RBI.
hitless in 2 games. I mean, that's just it's not good enough. You got to have more from these guys.
I don't know if you got it on your punch list, but the elephant in the room for me is what's going on at third base.
Yeah, I mean, I actually wanted to get to this earlier. Give me your take first before I do the verbal diarrhea thing here.
So Rob said he's going to play tomorrow. I guess you put him in a lineup. He can't bat in the middle of the lineup. He just absolutely can't. He comes into the game yesterday and had 2 horrific at bats. And you would think that the guy, after being benched, Alec Bohm would look at it and say, "All right, I've got to have a better approach at the plate when I go up there." And he comes up and as a pinch hitter for Sosa, swings first pitch and pops out. And then later has another at bat in the game, 8th inning, I think it was, pops out the other side, first base. Like, again, a bad at bat. I don't know what you do with him at this point, Bob. Like, there was part of me who thought that going into yesterday, I thought, okay, they're gonna sit Bohm, then he's gonna come back for game 3. Sosa's probably gonna play for Stott at second base. But there's part of me that's sitting there saying today, I don't know if you could put Bohm back in the lineup, and I would keep Sosa against the lefty at third and keep Stott in the lineup. Stott actually gave you good at bats yesterday, not just the triple aside. Like I felt like he actually had some good at bats. He had another hit. He did strike out twice. The first one I felt he got screwed on. It was a ball 4, and he struck out. And then the second one, it was at least a lengthier at bat. Plus, he was unbelievable defensively. He makes that great play up the middle on JD Martinez. That would have scored a run for the Mets, right? So like that changed the complexion of the game early too with his defense. I would almost go Sosa at third again and put Bohm back on the bench.
Yeah, I'd probably if Bryson Stott had an 0 for yesterday, I'd say, look, we all like Bryson Stott, but you got to get Sosa in the lineup, get the extra right-handed bat in the lineup. But given the defense and given the key hits, and you just figure he at least has a chance of bearing down. One thing I've always said about Bryson Stott, even when he hasn't been great, is that you do like him in big spots. He just seems to have a feel for moments. He has a history of it. Alec Bohm, on the other hand, is a 218 career postseason hitter. He hit 224 in the 22 playoffs. He had 239 last season. He's 0 for 6 this season. I think it's probably come across throughout the year here and maybe over time. I credit Alec Bohm for being a disaster defensively at third base and then becoming below average. Like that's credit to him.
Passable, right? Yeah,
Passable. That's so I give him credit, and I understand that he hit a lot of doubles this year, and that he flirted with 300, and that he's like a good major league hitter. He's an above average major league hitter. I don't know how I want to be careful about how I say this. If I were constructing a team moving forward, like whatever happens here, I would move Alec Bohm. I would actively look to get rid of Alec Bohm. I don't think he's good enough. I don't think that he is a primetime player. I don't think that his offensive positives outweigh his otherwise below average defense. I wonder about his his behavior is concerning to me, actually, after at bats, like slamming the bats, grabbing the bats, throwing temper tantrums. Like, if he were lighting it up, we'd say, like, well, he's just fiery. Like, I don't want the result to be why I have a criticism of the action, right? Like, if he did that shit and then was launching 3-run homers, like, I still be like, I think I'd still be like, what's this guy doing? So, like, there's a fine line between competitiveness and being fiery and wanting more out of yourself, and like also just looking like a maniac and totally out of control. And I don't know what's going on with this guy. Like, I know he wants to win. I know he wants to be successful. I'm sure he feels the pressure, but like, I just don't like it. And I don't know what you said. It's the elephant in the room. Like, was it really about getting Edmundo Sosa's energy into the lineup?
No.
Which, like, Destiny Lugardo wrote a piece yesterday on Phillies Nation, which was like, it's pretty concerning that Rob is talking about needing to find energy in the second game of a postseason run where you are trying to win a championship and are expected to compete for one. I don't even know. I just don't believe, frankly, I don't believe what Rob said. I do not believe that it was about trying to inject energy in the lineup. I think that he thinks that Alec Bohm is either not good enough, not mentally dialed in enough, or is hurt, which I don't think that's what this is about either.
Yeah, you know? I don't think he would lie and say he's not hurt. Like Rob said that. He said he's not hurt.
He's not hurt. You're not doing the player any favor at that point, right? Like,
right.
You're basically saying, like, no, he's healthy. He's just not in the lineup.
Yeah. Yeah. So that, you know, the whole injury thing or hiding an injury thing, like, I don't think they would lie about somebody not being hurt. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, no, he's not injured. Like, I don't think they would go that far. Yeah, I'm sitting.
Am I wrong? Am I wrong in my assessment of him? Because like someone at the Phillies is going to listen to this and be like, "Oh, Bob Wankel said that Alec Bohm's a mental midget, and you know he's not a good baseball player." And like, it's not. That's, I think, a oversimplification. But I think I don't know.
No,
it's pretty telling that he was the guy that was in the lineup. I think it speaks volumes about the way that they feel about Alec Bohm.
Yeah, and I know Rob said he's going to be back in. I'm just really perplexed by this whole thing, Bob. I don't know where
the danger of sitting him down and then saying, "Okay, now we're going to go back to you." Like, what does that say to the player? Yeah. You know, I know he texted him, and look, Rob. We always say that Rob, the strength is his handle of the clubhouse, the respect that he cultivates, how much these guys like respect and want to play for him. That's a tough conversation to have with an everyday player who, for the bulk of the season, was your cleanup hitter. You go to him and say, "Look, our season's on the line today. We're going to go to Edmundo Sosa."
Yeah.
It wasn't even a platoon thing. It wasn't like, well, we're going to go Cody Clemens because we just want to get another left-handed bat. I mean, it was, we're going to go to Edmundo Sosa, a right-handed hitter who's not particularly great against right-handed pitching.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know where he fits in this lineup right now. Like, the top four, who the top four are going to be in the lineup. What's 5 through 9 look like tonight? Or tomorrow night?
I guess at this point, which, like, I'm not super enthusiastic about this, but I probably hit Bryson Stott 5th.
Well, but let's assume Bohm's in the lineup. Is Stott staying in, or is Sosa going to play ahead of Stott?
I think Stott's going to play, right?
Yeah.
So, all right, look, let's work through this. You got Minaya on the. All right, hold on. Let me pump the brakes on Stott hitting 5th with Minaya on the mound. So Castellanos stays in the cleanup. You know the first 3. You know the first 4. Do you go? I mean, you just don't have a great option here. JT Realmuto hasn't swung the bat well. Do you just trust him because he's a veteran guy and like, and is an adult, and like you say, go ahead, JT, and then hit Stott 6 because you can't go 3 straight righties. You don't want to do that. And then you go Bohm 7.
Bohm's got to be down in the lineup, in my mind.
I don't think Bohm. I wouldn't be surprised if Bohm hits 5th, but I don't think he should hit before the 6th spot tomorrow.
Yeah, look, or do you look at a guy like Austin Hayes, who's going to be in the lineup, who hits lefties?
I know, man.
Who hits lefties? I'm with you on this guy, but he hits lefties. Do you look at it and say maybe Austin Hayes can bat 7th and even go further down the lineup with Bohm and drop him to 8.
I don't know, because you have to like walk this, like you do have to massage this. Now, I mean, look, the numbers are the numbers, and like, sorry, Alec, if your feelings are hurt. And I'm not saying they are. Like, look, one thing I want to be very clear about here is I am not saying that Alec Bohm took this news and was like, or like slumped or turned into a shitty teammate, or was, I have no idea how he took it, right? But what I do think you have to be careful about is like losing the player. I mean, this is a guy who's not been very good for an extended period here, who seemingly, based on his on-field behavior, takes things very, very harshly. So when you tell this guy, like, we don't trust, I mean, look, you can package it however you want, but at the end of the day, the message is, we don't trust you today. How does that player respond? And what evidence other than the Mets errors, the 3 errors a couple of years ago, and then kind of getting it together, like, we don't have a ton of evidence that he's going to handle this well. So, like, that's, to me, the most interesting thing about benching him is now the repercussions and the way that he's going to bounce back from it. I mean, his last 15 games, he's 10 for 56. He's at 179 with a 511 OPS over his last 15 games. Over his last 7 games, he's 2 for his last 27 with an 074 average. So this is a guy that's not swinging the bat well to begin with. Where's his confidence level right now? And then you bench him, and then you say, all right, here's the keys again. We're going to go hit you in the middle of the order. Baseball's a weird game. It only takes one swing, but
and
it's a dark spot to be in.
I think that they went to him yesterday. Well, they had to. They had to because of where they were in the game. But those 2 at-bats that he had yesterday, to me, spoke even more volumes about how far gone he is at this point. Because he just was awful, Bob. He came up there, swung at the first pitch, and hit a pop-up to the third baseman. Like, it was just not even, there was no approach. And then I think the second at bat, I don't have it on me, but I think the second at bat was 2 pitches. And he popped up to the first baseman. Like, it was so, I had somebody tweet at me because I had mentioned that he was in the on-deck circle to bat for Sosa. And then somebody responded to the tweet, said he made an out before you even had a chance to finish typing this tweet. Like, I mean, that's how bad it was.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's crazy. It's crazy right now that this is where we're at with this guy.
There's also, though, a lot of people listen to this, like that I think I'm in the minority of the Alec Bohm assessment. I do. And I think that you are not quite where I'm at, but like a lot of people are going to point to this and be like, look, he hit 280. He had a 780 OPS this season. He led the National League in double. I don't know if he finished there, but for the bulk of the season, he led the National League in doubles. Like, this is a useful player. I would like to turn the page from him. I don't think he's good enough. I just don't. I don't think he's good enough.
I'm having a hard time deciding whether he should be in the lineup or not. I'm leaning toward no. Rob's going to put him in. There's no doubt in my mind he's going to play game 3. I don't know where he fits in the lineup. If he's going to play, I got to bat him 7 or 8 in the lineup. I can't put him in the 5 spot. I think he's a black hole there. I don't know. I don't know how they're going to handle it.
We did this last postseason. I sat there next year. I was like, this guy. Like,
yeah.
I know he hit the home run in game 7, but like,
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. I don't know, man. That is the one part of it. Now let's just, I mean, we're at an hour 12. We got to wrap this up, but what do you got? You said Phillies in 4 at the start of the series. Are you still Phillies in 4 guy?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I said Phillies in 4, expecting them to lose one of the first 2 at home. So I'm sticking with it, but I'm less confident in that pick today than I was Friday. Again, because of what I've seen from the bullpen. I think I'm starting to think now it's going to come back home, but I'll stick with my prediction for now.
Well, as we all know, in recent 21st century Phillies history, that the Phillies never lose a game 5 of the NLDS at home against a inferior opponent with the best pitcher in the game on the mound. That has never happened before.
Never happened. Never happened.
I'll still go Phillies in 5. I do think they'll actually kind of exercise the demons of that 2011 Game 5 loss to the Cardinals. I think that this time the ball blows out over the wall and they win one, powered by a big-time pitching performance from their ace. Yep. I don't know how it's going to happen. I said that I thought coming into the series, like, I don't know, like, do I get schooled for this? Like, I said I thought the Phillies were going to hit. Well, they sure as hell didn't hit Saturday. They hit yesterday though, so it
Yeah.
was so I got that half right, I guess. But yeah, I'll stay Phillies in 5. Real quick, the other series. What have you seen
Well,
so far?
this was my one last thing
Okay.
was going to
Oh,
be
good.
about this.
Perfect.
So one last thing, Padres, Dodgers, they're also 1-1. Padres really shoved hard yesterday. And the thing I wanted to bring up, even though we're talking about the game, it's, the games in of themselves. My one last thing was, for all the negative talk that we've gotten over the years about Philadelphia fans, what took place yesterday in Los Angeles between the Dodgers fans and both Jerickson Profar and Fernando Tatis in right field is a disgrace. Is a disgrace to the fandom in sports. Those people should not ever be allowed back into baseball games. Like, you cannot be throwing items at players on the field, like, because they're on the other team. You cannot do it. I'm sorry, it's dangerous. These people are not doing anything wrong to you. They're performing their job to the best of their ability. That's what they're doing. And so my one last thing was about the fans. But the way the series is going, I think it's I still stick by the Padres.
Yeah, I agree. I think Padres are a better team.
Yeah, Dodgers had a great first game. I give them credit. Ohtani had his moment, whatever. Padres are a better team.
Did you see what the broadcast? Like, I don't want to spend too much time talking about the broadcast. Thought that the Phillies broadcast was horrendous. Just top to bottom, terrible broadcast. I couldn't believe how bad it was. Phillies fans think that these guys are pro-Met. The Mets fans are online bitching and saying that they're pro-Philly. Like, everyone hates them. And I don't think it has anything to do about team bias. I just think they're bad broadcasters. Or if they're not bad broadcasters, this broadcast is bad. It doesn't work. But I don't know if you saw with the Padres and Dodgers, it's like 4 more batters till Shohei Ohtani. Like, come on, dude. Like, I know that you're seeing something truly unique and special, maybe the best baseball player we've seen in our lifetimes. That's great. But, like,
he was 0 for last night, wasn't he?
Like, let it breathe. 3 more batters till Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah.
Nobody's watching that game. Nobody's coming in back and forth watching Padres Dodgers just to see Shohei Ohtani at bats. Like, you don't have to time it up just for that. You're either watching a game or you're not. You don't need to do that.
Exactly.
Embarrassing.
Nah, the Padres looked really good yesterday.
Yeah,
that lineup.
I'll take them. It'll probably go 5 so that the Phillies and Mets can play every game at 4 or 5 p.m. through the duration of this series. Isn't it amazing? Philadelphia and New York markets can't get a game that starts at 7 p.m. or later.
I think here's another thing that I have with this, Bob, on that topic. Why are we starting games at 4 o'clock? Or 5 o'clock? If you want to play an afternoon game, play it in the afternoon, but play it, 2 o'clock in the afternoon so that the entire game's in the same daylight, right? But if you don't, starting at that time, it's bad for people who want to go to the game because it impacts your. I know I was on the weekend, right? So it didn't really impact this weekend, but going forward, it's going to impact your work day. It's going to impact travel. You're not thinking of the fans at all. It's not a good TV time, right? It's like there's nothing good about it. I don't know why the networks and Major League Baseball think that this is a good thing.
Shout out to me who watched all 18 innings of this weekend's games with a 19-month-old and a 3-year-old, literally hanging off of my shirt for most of it. So I love my children, and I very soon look forward to the day that I can sit down and watch a ball game with them. But right now, a 7 o'clock start time, post bedtime start time would be welcome.
Yeah, I'm surprised you're able to text me during the games. Then, considering,
yeah.
But no, I think
said to my wife at one point yesterday. I said, I'm going to go downstairs for 1 inning. I just need 1 inning away from all of this, and I will be back.
Yeah, the one, and just the final thought on that. It's especially perturbing that this is the schedule, considering the other series is 2 California teams.
Yeah.
Are you really that concerned about an East Coast audience watching Padres Dodgers?
Yeah.
That you're willing to sacrifice an East Coast audience for Philadelphia and New York?
Yeah.
Like that
Strange.
doesn't, it's completely strange to me. These games should have started, if you want to say you start the game at 6 o'clock, 6:30, whatever, 6:30 and 9 o'clock, I think you would have been just fine.
Yep. All right. Well, I don't know when we'll be back, but we'll be back. I guess after, I don't know. We'll talk about it. Maybe we'll do each game. We'll see. We'll see how it's going.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see how it's going.
All right. For Anthony Sanfilippo, I'm Bob Wankel. We will talk to you later this week.